And it's time for Type Over 40 from Facebook. That's me, Dan Hadley, here on YouTube. And you may know me. I'm the host of the Fandom Podcast Network's Type 40 Doctor Who podcast. We've been going a little while now. And these videos, this regular sort of video diary, vidcast thing, is a companion piece to that. And just somewhere else we can come in and exchange messages and explore those topics a little further and just keep track of day-to-day life as a Doctor Who fan, week-to-week life, certainly, as things change and we count down to Series 12, the all-important Series 12. And along the way, I'm going to drag into the TARDIS whoever I can, really. But I'll be honest, it's mostly going to be this fella. It's my friend Simon Horton. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Dan. I should break it to you now. I'm not actually a Doctor Who fan. I'm a Star Wars fan. I think I'm on the wrong show. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Anyway. Well. Now you've introduced an element of doubt into the equation.
Yes.
There's only one thing left for me to do. I've got to dig out my Doctor Who 2013 trivia quiz. So test this
okay.
Live now for you. I think I should.
Right, this will prove whether I am a Who fan or not. I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I've got the cards here.
Pressure's on. Pressure's on.
Shuffle. I've never been any good at shuffling cards, so there we are. One out and
yes.
Simon, this is your question.
Okay.
What were the last words spoken by the face of Bo?
Oh, my giddy aunt, as Pat Trout would say. Well, whoa, that's kind of a... That's
actually a lot tougher than I was expecting.
Yeah, that's a new series question. If it had been a classic question, I might have got it. Okay. I'm going to take a. How many words are there? Let me take a rough guess at this.
4 words.
4 words. 4 words.
4 words. If you track
it's something cryptic. It's something cryptic, isn't it? It's to do with Captain Jack cryptically being the face of Bo, isn't it? Am I right? So it's something like "You will see me again." That's 5 words.
No, but it was that episode. It was in New Earth, and to be honest, I think this is quite tough. I've been ripping the piss out of this quiz, Marks and Spencer. And here we are with a reasonably tough one. I probably wouldn't have twigged this. It's the phrase "You are not alone."
Oh, of course it is. It's Yana, isn't it? It's YANA.
You forget that they started sort of sowing the seeds of that earlier. I wasn't. Let him stay anyway.
Well, I wasn't a million miles off with "You will see me again." I wasn't a million miles off.
No, you weren't at all. I should have done what I did on the other video and gave you if I'd given you the answer first, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you should have.
That just goes to show none of this is prepared at all.
No,
just throw it together.
Nobody's going to mistake this for a rehearsal.
Back to the coalface, because we did a feedback video recently, and we've got some more. We've had a few little missives, as I think they say. So in true points of view fashion, Barry Took or Anne Robinson. Who do I want to be?
Barry Took, definitely Barry Took.
I think I'm better as Barry Took, aren't I? I look better in tweed than in the all black. So we've got some more messages that you good people have been good enough to send in to us here at Type 40 and Type Over 40 about the show and about related topics, because over the last couple of months we've covered all sorts of the geeky deeper dives, haven't we, as the Blu-rays have come out, and we like to spend a lot of time with those Blu-rays, don't we, Simon?
Oh yes, I can talk till next Christmas about the Blu-rays.
Exactly, it's a niche. We both love these Blu-ray sets. There's a new set out soon, and there'll doubtless be another podcast along the way after that. But fortunately, you guys love them as much as we do. And we've had some other messages as well about various things over the last couple of months we put out in podcast and video form. So we're going to take a look at those now and get on to our lovely viewers and listeners. So here we are. First, this is Nigel Potter of the Hunatics. Don't know what that is, do you?
No, never heard of it. I haven't got a clue.
Great video, guys. Good to see you again, Simon. You get the name, Jim. As eloquent and engaging as always, and that enthusiasm shines through.
Well, I paid him quite handsomely to say that, I have to say.
That's
He
from
put about.
Nigel Potter in the Hoonatics. Now, I've seen Nigel's name around. He's a long-standing Hoonatic.
He certainly is. Nigel's one of the original Hoonatics, for want of a better word, that goes right back to the late 80s, about 88, 87. I've known Nigel many, many, many years. Haven't seen him for a while, actually. But he's a good mate, and he's an absolutely top Doctor Who fan. He loves his Doctor Who. He's as geeky as the rest of us, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying that.
Yeah, well, thanks for the message, Nigel. Yeah, we both appreciate it, and massage either of our egos. There's no complaints here, Mr. Simon.
No. I'm going to get that one framed, I think, and put it up on the wall. Thank you for that, Nigel.
Yeah, keep it coming. And next we've got, this is in relation to our Terence Dicks video a little while ago. We did that special. I think it was one of the first video casts that you and I did together.
Yes, I think it was, Dan. Yeah.
When Terence Dicks sadly,
very sadly died. Still can't believe we're talking about him in the past tense.
No. And Chris Stone got in touch on Facebook. We know Chris quite well. He's a member of our Type 40 Facebook group. It's a lovely tribute. Thanks for that. Really enjoyed it. I feel like enough people, not necessarily you guys, aren't giving him credit for the entire Pertwee era, though. Let's not forget he had a hand in writing and rewriting there. Go for it again, Hadley. He had a hand in writing and rewriting every single Pertwee story. Essentially, he was the co-showrunner. He's too humble to take the credit, but Terence is very responsible for the Pertwee era being so great, and his stamp is on absolutely everything in that era. His loss will be felt for a long time to come.
That's absolutely perfect words from Chris, actually, and I mean, funnily enough, we did touch on exactly this in our podcast about Terence Dicks, the fact that well, it's not just that he's responsible for everything within the Pertwee era; he's responsible for so much within the Doctor Who, the entire Doctor Who pantheon of historical backstory, because as we pointed out at the time, you forget this, but he created the Time Lords. That's pretty mammoth part of the Who legacy. So it isn't just the Pertwee years. He's responsible for so much, and I think we said this at the time, Dan. You can't overestimate the impact, the influence, the inputs that Terence Dicks had on the show. He was absolutely one of the top dogs of Doctor Who. Simple as that. And quite rightly said, Chris. Well, it's a nice message from you, Chris. I agree totally.
I think we were all, a man in his 80s, and yet when he passed away, we were all shocked and upset and very, very sad, weren't we? And we got together and we recorded that video, but we were both still kind of reeling a little from it, weren't we?
I think I'm still reeling from it now, to be honest, Dan. It's still, gosh, Terence Dicks is just such an enormous part of Doctor Who that to think of him no longer being there, it is kind of weird in a way. And going back to what you were talking about a few minutes ago, the Blu-rays, so many of those making of documentaries and commentaries he appears on, and there's a reason for that, because he was involved in so many of them. And so I've been watching, funnily enough, a bit more of the season 10 Blu-ray box set this week, and it's really bittersweet to see him now in those documentaries and know that he's gone. It's still terrible loss. Simple as that.
I would imagine that Terence has recorded a few other bits and bobs for us, and what with rewatching DVDs and Blu-rays, we'll be listening and watching and certainly reading Terence Dicks for a long, long time to come. Probably for the rest of our natural lives too. And that's not a sad thing at all. I get a certain amount of comfort from that, and I would imagine he knows that we're all thinking about him, and he'll be greatly missed. We've had some more feedback about Terence as well, because other people, quite naturally, we've all got our favourite Terence Dicks contribution and story. And Cliff Maxwell got in touch on Facebook, and he opens with, "Great to see you two chat. I'd have to go with Robot as my favourite Dicks script. The Economy of Dialogue, my first completely watched episode. Harry Sullivan and the socio-political commentary of Nukes from the Day. Who else would write lines like, the Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart said, on neutral monitoring of superpower missile bases? Naturally enough, the only country that could be trusted with such a role was Great Britain. And the Doctor, of course, replied, naturally, I mean, the rest were all foreigners. Thanks, Cliff. Thanks for reminding us of that one, Cliff, because it's a real classic perler of a quote, isn't it? Typically,
it is quite genius quote on Terence's part, and of course his tongue was very, very firmly in his cheek while he was writing that, and it just goes to show the economy of writing. That's what I think I noticed with Terence Dicks. He's a very economical writer. You look at scripts by, let's say, Stephen Moffat, and they're very, very overwritten. They're very flowery. Terence is very clear, simple, concise and precise in what he says. He says what he means, and he means what he says, and he gets the message across in a very few words. That's a perfect example. And well done, Cliff, for pointing that out. I've forgotten that quote. It's a beautiful quote. Thanks for bringing that up again, Cliff.
And yeah, we've got some more. We've got this one came in from somebody who's been in touch quite a lot lately, by one means or another. Daniel Leach said Terence Dicks was a great man. Nice tribute, Dan. My pleasure. He will be sorely missed by all in the community. Love your opinions, mate. Glad somebody does. Keep up the good work and stay safe. You stay safe too, Daniel. That's a sweet thing to say. That was a YouTube comment from Daniel there. And yeah, I mean, it is the community, us, the convention circuit, his co-workers, former colleagues, and just other people from conventions. They're going to notice Terence isn't there in that green room anymore, aren't they? One would think.
Yeah, because he was always famously invited to all of the press launches for the new series, and he was always brilliantly outspoken on his thoughts. He didn't mind shying away from his thoughts, and he would express them. And he will be sadly missed by not just classic fans, but by Doctor Who fans. It's as simple as that. I think his legacy will certainly live, undoubtedly, as long as the show itself lives. We will still be talking about Terence Dicks in many, many, many years to come.
I think there'll be certainly more from us on the subject as more of those box sets come out, because let's face it, it wasn't just Series 10. He's all over so many of them.
He's Mr. Doctor Who. At the end of the day, he is Mr. Doctor Who, isn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah. And talking about the box sets, our opinions on the box sets have also got us a bit of mail here. So we've got, this is from Gar535, which is on YouTube comment. He says, a new subscriber, great show. Thank you, all praise, gratefully accepted. I agree, there should be one release a quarter and not to rush them. This is in reference to something you've said a few times there, Simon, about the...
Yeah, it is. That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard anybody else sort of agree with me. Not that I want to be agreed with, but I do feel very strongly about that, and it's nice to know that I'm not completely alone in that view.
Yeah, he says, I've heard that season 16, which is of course the Key to Time season, is set to follow season 26. For the rest of 2020, I'd add season 20 plus the 5 Doctors. The Turlough Black Guardian trilogy would be a logical follow-up to season 16. It's a reasonable point. Then a Pertwee, season 9, or season 11 if they can bring Invasion of the Dinosaurs, episode 1 up to HD standard, then season 13. So Gar535's got lots of ideas there, Simon. What hits you about that lot? You can see his line of thought there.
Yeah, I've thought for a long time that season 16 is just a very logical release to bring out, because it is the same as season 23. It's just a self-contained set of episodes. Yes, I would concur with season 20. I would be surprised if they don't release season 20 in around about a year's time, in November next year, simply because it would be totally logical to coincide it with as a November release. When's going to be the next big anniversary? Maybe they'll hold on to it for that. I don't know. I mean, my personal favourites, my absolute favourite seasons that I'm really looking forward to releasing is 13 and 14. So I agree with Gar on that one, that 13 I think will be quite soon, because it is widely regarded as an absolute classic Tom Baker series. And as I said, I put 14 up there as well. Those are my two releases that I'm desperate for. What about you? Is there a particular season that you're desperate to see, Dan?
Despite the fact that we've talked about the continuity of these releases before and how they decide what they're going to decide, I really do think that it would be nice to have that continuity. And, we've had season 12 to move on with season 13. And I think there's something about giving it a benefit of that, particularly to the American market. Having said that, the American market aren't getting the Blu-ray box sets anywhere near the rate that we are. I understand that season 10 is out just before Christmas, and they've got no dates yet now for season 23 or season 26 yet, which really has surprised me, because it all got off to such a flying start in the American market. Season 12 had a huge buzz about it, and so did season 19. So who knows what the logic is behind that? I think the key to time is, the more I think about it, the more likely that is. There's such a good combination of location to studio work in there. And I think he's got a point, because we know that material's been filmed for a season 20 box set. And it depends. How scattershot are they going to go with this? For all I know, they just pull the numbers out of a sack. But you've explained, because you'd guessed so right with like 3 or 4 of these releases, Simon. And when you argued your logic as to why you thought season 23 and season 26 will come in, makes perfect sense. So I've got no real preference to what they bring out when. But I do think about those people who don't own the DVDs and certainly didn't have the VHSs, and this may be their first time viewing them. And what would I find ideal? I think throwing them a little bit of continuity and a bit of the straight run probably wouldn't go amiss. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm still going with what I said a month or so ago, that I can't help thinking they're going to have to do a black and white release next year at some point. I'll be amazed if they don't do one of the first 2 Doctors.
I'd love one, particularly season 2.
I think, as I've said before, I think season 2 is by far the most logical choice, because it's the one that is by far the most complete of all of the black and white seasons. So I'll be amazed if that doesn't get a release next year. To be honest, I'm still, I'm nailing my colours to the mast and saying I'm guessing on season 2 next year. But the thing as well that surprises me, going along with the whole American thing that you're just talking about, is I'm still mystified why the box sets are being released in the UK as limited edition sets that then fly off the shelves, disappear, and are now fetching extortionate amounts on eBay. I just don't. Why is that? I just don't get the logic of doing all this work on the Blu-rays, and there is substantial work being done, to then only have a limited run and
available for such a fleeting period.
I don't get that. Why? I just don't understand the market logic of doing that. You would think that the BBC would want to squeeze, quite understandably, every last pound out of these releases. And while there are still people clamouring to buy them, I just don't get why you wouldn't have them as a permanently available release, unless they're planning to release some super deluxe edition in a few years' time, which really worries me. I pray that they're not planning to do that. I really do. And we're going to have to rebuy them all over again.
That byline, the collection. I mean, to me, if you're putting something out as the collection, then you have an obligation to make sure that people can still collect them. This isn't a part work. They're treating it as such. Something as a collection. Ideally, a new or nearly new customer, somebody who's always wanted these things and now can at last afford them. Maybe they're working for the first time or whatever, or they have a windfall. They can go into HMV or hit the listings on Amazon and build that collection, rather than bit by bit, as and when they're dripped out, and then you miss your window and that's it, it's gone. where's your collection, then where's your extended life. But maybe they're not looking at extended life on the Blu-ray format.
But it just doesn't make sense why they wouldn't, purely from a you know, a financial point of view. Why wouldn't they do that? The other thing that I'm really intrigued about is I wonder what they're going to do with these releases once they change the Jodie Whittaker logo, which they will at some point. I mean, they've said that the Blu-ray releases will take probably 5 years to get everything out on Blu-ray. So that logo is going to change sometime before the end of the Blu-ray run. What are they going to do? Are they going to change? I mean, I hate the fact that it's the Jodie Whittaker logo on there. But now they've started them, they have to finish them with the Jodie Whittaker logo. But I'm assuming that they won't do that. The BBC have clearly become obsessed with this logo and plastering it on everything new so that everything looks of the same brand. So presumably once they change the logo on the show, they're going to have to change that logo on the Blu-rays, which means that as Doctor Who fans, we're going to be deeply unhappy, and we will be bemoaning the fact forevermore that the box sets no longer match up, because they won't be the same.
I think unhappy is putting it mildly, knowing Doctor Who fans. I did notice that there's that new Target book which has been allowed to bear the Pertwee logo. That's the first item, and there is another range of merchandise that's appeared in the last week, which I think it's something to do with Harrops, who make collectible figures. If somebody out there knows what Harrops do, I can't quite remember. And they've got a new line coming out, which at the moment, in all their pre-publicity pamphlets and online adverts, they're using the old classic series logo too. So maybe there's a change coming there. I'm not quite certain. There was a point there about the release rate as well. You've been pretty vocal about that. You think they could be coming out a little too quickly. So yeah, it is nice to have somebody that agrees with you on that.
Yeah, I feel they're coming out a little bit too quickly for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because I do still worry that they're rushing them, and I've been very vocal, and I'm not going to go on about it here about what's being missed off the box sets. But also because these aren't cheap box sets. They're £40 a pop. No. And so if you're releasing 4 a year, you're talking 5 a year, you're talking £200 for a fan to fork out, and you have got to buy them there and then when they come out, because the release window is so short, and you'll miss your box set if you don't get it. So I think actually it's just a little bit unfair that fans are having to buy them now, whether they like it or not. They've got to fork the money out now. It's not something that they can wait a few months, a couple of years until they may be a little bit more financially able to afford these. And so that's the other reason. I just think it seems a little bit odd, the rate and the fact that they're being released for such a short time.
Unless they're spending more time working on key releases and tentpole features and new effects treatments or whatever else. We've had conversations as well as we talked about the box sets, and there's one thing that you mentioned in particular that's stimulated this person to think quite heavily about it. This next.
What have I said? What have I said?
Relax, it's all good stuff. This is from John McHugh, again, one of the Who-natics, and John says, it was a lovely video, hoping to check out some of the others, sort of a visual podcasts. Absolutely right, that's exactly what it is. So, yeah. On the subject of colorization, Simon, if you remember we talked about
I remember talking about this.
I don't know if this would be that feasible. The BBC have a hard enough time finding decent animation crews for the missing stories, the last really decent one being 10th Planet Episode 4. So I don't know if Who fandom would want 5-year-old-esque attempts in colorizing because of the limits of BBC budget, going with the cheapest bidder and such.
Okay. Oh, yeah, he goes on. I do apologise.
It's a nice thought. It would be amazing to see something like The Crusade, Reign of Terror, The Chase, or really any Dalek story properly colorised. So like the fellows in the vid said, that's you and I. I've never been a fellow before.
I don't think I still am.
So long as it's actually done well and properly, yes, it is a neat thought, but I don't see the Beeb going that far with it.
Okay, it's interesting because I mean, the point I was making when I first said that I thought they should give colorizing a go is because they're spending a reasonable amount of money on quite sophisticated CGI effects on some of the stories. And again, I've been vocal about the fact that I don't necessarily feel they're working desperately well in a lot of cases. But the fact is, a lot of work is being done on them, and the CGI effects are extensive in some of these stories. And so it seems perfectly logical to me still to give colorization a go. And the reason I say that is because for anybody that's seen the colorized version of The Mind of Evil, that was done, I think I'm right in saying episode 1 was done manually, and episode 2 was done by a more automatic process. But the whole story itself looks absolutely stunning in color. And so I still come down to the fact that we've got those reference photos from most stories. We know what the colors are. So it's not like we are trying to colorize something that was made in black and white, because it wasn't. It was made in color. It just was recorded on cameras in black and white. And so it can be done. But I take on John's point that are we at a position, or are the BBC at a position to be able to afford the cost to do it? I just think it's one of those things that should be done, and they need to find the money to do it.
I'm not because a fan of colorization generally. I've never got it. I've never seen the appeal, and I get very little out of it when I watch them after they're done. Particularly of older movies and things. But the more I think about it, what you've said, I mean, yeah, they were recorded in colour, and the production design was conceived and realised with an eye for colour, wasn't it? It wasn't. Remember the original series of Star Trek, how they were still, when that was broadcast originally, I mean, when it was shown on British television in the early 70s, black and white TVs were still by far more commonplace. So we didn't get it in colour for years and years after. But even in the States, that was true. And the reason why they picked the colour palette of the bridge the way they did is so that the colours would stand out more in black and white and things. And I would imagine that was done on Doctor Who, but it was conceived as and designed and put together with a mind for colour.
Yes, and this is why actually I feel that colorizing a black and white story is actually more legitimate and more justifiable than doing CGI effects on, for example, Revenge of the Cybermen, because the effects in Revenge of the Cybermen were never meant to look like that. They were meant to look exactly as they appear in the program. So with colorization, you aren't doing anything that wasn't intended. The fact remains, had the BBC had colour cameras and colour transmission at that point in 1960, in the early 60s, those stories would have been made and transmitted in colour. So all you're doing is putting it back to what it would have been had they had the technology, rather than the CGI effects, which actually are a straight replacement, basically saying these effects aren't good enough, and so we're going to replace them with these. So I think black and white is completely justifiable. Totally colorizing black and white is completely justifiable.
Why you were so against those, and yet was so happy. But that does make sense now you've explained it. Makes perfect sense. We've had some more Blu-ray talk as well. I think you'll probably like this. It does complement it.
I do like my Blu-ray chat.
This is from Chris Stone again on Facebook.
Yeah.
Chris spoke to us earlier.
Hello, Chris.
I'm really enjoying the chemistry you guys have together. So are we.
We hate each other, actually, don't we, Dan?
Well done, says Chris. I'm inclined to agree about the colorization. The thing with Mind of Evil, as referenced in our video, is that not only was it shot in colour, but the colour information was actually still contained within the black and white film prints that existed. I don't understand how this crazy technology works, but I know that all the colour information was there. I'm glad you don't understand, Chris, because neither do I, mate. The thing with colorizing episodes that were shot in black and white is that the information isn't there, and it all has to be done manually. He goes on to say the information can only be retrieved from colour stills of the time, just like you said. The process would be incredibly expensive. And let's be honest, every colorization of black and white material ever done looks pretty questionable. Questionable when it comes right down to it. There has been a few big budget colorizations done over the years, and to my eyes, it doesn't look quite right. I just don't think the technology is there, especially on a BBC budget. The other issue, of course, is that because the shows were actually shot in black and white, many directors intended them to be seen this way and may have deliberately steered away from certain colours, knowing full well that it wouldn't make a difference on screen. This is a contrast to what we were saying a moment ago. Some TV and movie directors back in the day, so I've heard, even used brown for blood because they knew it would make no difference. This sort of thing reportedly happened all the time. In other words, the directors intended that the show was to be in black and white, and that's how it should remain, just my opinion. Thank you, Chris.
Well, thank you, Chris. I mean, yes, sadly, I'd disagree with you on obviously on that point, as I've sort of made clear. But Chris is absolutely right in that, yes, colour decisions were made knowing that the programmes were going to be transmitted in black and white. So, for example, the TARDIS console, right up to early Pertwee days, is famously a pale green colour. And you can still see it today. If you watch your Season 10 box set, you'll see the TARDIS console is a pale green colour, and that was because doing it grey would have been too white in black and white on transmission. So yeah, decisions were made based on that, but the fact that they were still using that console into John Pertwee days in pale green means that it's complete within the canon of Doctor Who. Being geeky for a second, it's again completely justifiable that yes, if you were going to colorise those Hartnell Troughton episodes, you'd do it pale green because that was the colour that Pertwee had. So and again, I disagree with Chris very friendlily. Hello, Chris. But I disagree with you simply because if you look at the production photos of something like Marco Polo, the colours are so stunning that whilst decisions were being made with regards to transmission in black and white, nonetheless, the sets and the costumes were still made in full colour with the intention of them looking good. Otherwise, they simply wouldn't look as good as they do in those colour behind the scenes shots that we've got. So I still justify, no, you can colorise them because, decisions were made based on black and white, but nonetheless, the colours still work in colour. The one thing that to pick up as well on Chris's first comment about this is what I was talking about with regards to the Mind of Evil. In the episodes 2 to 6, as far as I know, yes, were colorized automatically in inverted commas, which makes it sound very simple, and it clearly isn't. But they were colorized automatically using the color dot information that is stored within the optical soundtrack on the film. And so it was an easier process. I'm simplifying that enormously, and I'm sure if we got somebody like Peter Crocker or Paul Venesis on a podcast, hello guys, come and do a podcast with us and put me right, they would be able to actually correct me on all of that and explain how it's done. But this is the crucial difference. As I understand it, episode 1 of The Mind of Evil was done totally manually, using no chroma dot information from that's stored within the optical soundtrack of the film. And if you watch episode 1 of The Mind of Evil, actually, it's better than episodes 2 to 6. The work on it is stunning. And so that, again, is why I'm justifying yet again that you can colorize black and white and it will look stunning. So to correct what I think, as I don't agree with Chris that it won't look good. Done properly, it could look truly stunning. But I agree, I understand it's entirely down to budget and it won't be cheap. It's as simple as that.
I had no idea that they used to replace the red with brown. Well, I feel educated by that.
Yeah, I don't know as I knew that. Maybe, yeah, but it does make sense. But so I guess the question comes up, if there's blood within a black and white story, do you colorize it in brown as it was originally shot, or do you colorize it in red as it should be seen? Well, I feel a can of worms has been opened down.
Absolutely everywhere. Before we leave Blu-rays, we've got one more question, and this is putting you on the spot again, Simon. This is
Oh no!
this is something that you said when we talked about the announcement about
Oh, what have I said this time?
season
I've got to learn
26
to shut
coming.
up.
We had a message come in from a friend of mine, Justin Thomas, who sent us this little missive on Facebook Messenger. This was. And Justin says, "Hello, Josh. Does your friend really not understand Ghostlight? I can help. Please pass this along. Light is a cataloger of the universe, like in a library. He's been collecting data on the universe and cataloguing it. Then, as it was nearing completion, things began to evolve and change, messing up his catalogue entries. He couldn't keep up with the changes. He got angry, went mad, and in order to stop changes, decided to destroy everything. The others around him are specimens of his catalogue entries or his staff." Thank you, Justin. He's Simon's.
Well, okay. Yeah. What do what do I even say to that one?
Answer for yourself. Yeah, because you've said that the Sylvester McCoy era is your least favourite, haven't you? And
Yes.
this story in particular, we've both joked about it being unintelligible.
Well, yeah. Well, let's just qualify that and say it's my least favourite era of the classic years. It's by no means my least favourite era of Doctor Who, full stop. But that's for another day.
I concur.
But yeah, Sylvester McCoy era is definitely my least favourite of the classic series. And it's funny, with Ghostlight, because I really wanted to like Ghostlight. The name itself, I mean, Ghostlight, what's not to like about Ghostlight? It's such a poetic title. I love the production values, I love the acting, I love the characters, I love everything about it, I love the atmosphere, but I just don't get it. And that description from Justin, that's not bad, actually. I do take my hat off to you, actually, Justin. That has
summarised it in a couple of paragraphs.
Well, yeah, that actually has explained it far better than I've ever understood it before. So I will ensure that I hold on to that. So when I watch Ghostlight, when the season 26 box set comes out, I will bear that in mind and see if it all makes sense, knowing what Justin has now said. And Dan, let's come back and we'll see how I get on when we come to do a podcast on season 26.
Because it's been several years since you revisited these stories as well.
Oh, gosh, I haven't seen it since transmission or shortly afterwards. So
even if, no matter what you'd have understood at the time, very little of that is going to remain with you 30 years on, isn't it? But I agree. I think it is unnecessarily confusing. Maybe not boiled down, but to get it boiled down to that level, you have got to really not just pay attention, but you've got to sort of hang on every word really and stitch some of it together yourself. I've seen Ghostlight dozens of times, and I understood it, but I feel similar to your own view of it. I've just one or two viewings.
It's as I say, it's interesting that Justin has done that, because he's clearly a fan of it and he's analysed it and he understands it in the way that I one of my favourite films of all time is 2001, and I'm constantly being criticised. Oh, I don't understand it. How can you like that film? I don't get it. Honestly, I could sit and happily explain what 2001 means in very simple terms, the same as Justin's done there, without any problem at all. So if you are a fan of something, I absolutely get how you can get a grip on it and work it out. So maybe
you won't have so much of a problem. It won't be so much of a chore to join together the connective tissue, or to maybe make up for the writer or director what they haven't done in their work. Is that?
Correct. And that's why I'm really looking forward actually to the season 26 box set coming out. And maybe I've just never given it enough time, because Warrior's Gate is an infamously impenetrable story. And I love Warrior's Gate, but I have to be honest, I haven't got a clue what that's about really either. I understand bits of it, but it doesn't quite hang together. So maybe Ghostlight is exactly the same. But I think maybe the truth of it is it probably should have been 4 episodes instead of 3. It's probably as simple as that.
I think that's probably the truth. And I think, Justin, you've got a win there, mate. So well done.
Yeah, I agree. Well done, Justin. Thank you. I'll come back to you on that one.
Further chat and further videos, further podcasts. We'll definitely be talking about season 26 when that's released. And Simon will be on the bench for that one. Definitely. So stay tuned. 30 years worth of opinions and perspectives may well be challenged. Both of ours, because I find that my opinion on stuff wavers all the time. Uh, particularly the John Pertwee era with me. That's my bogey time, I think. But yeah, it's great to have all these messages and for people to get involved and for it to spark conversation and your imaginations and your investment to come and sort of have a bit of a dialogue with us. So yeah, if you've got something to say about any of the content that we put out, either in video or in podcast form, or just any feedback in general, really, if you like my shirt, for example, or you think Simon's glasses are particularly chic, let us know any of that too. We'll take that. We don't mind.
We'll take anything, Dan. We're desperate.
Yeah, but that's it for now. Yeah, if you'd like to see and hear more, click like, click subscribe, and hit the little bell, and you'll know as soon as we drop these videos, as soon as we are loose again. You'll be the first to know about it because we will be sharing it across social media where we can. But we play nicely. We don't like to drop our videos all over the place. That really wouldn't be cricket. Because we have lots of friends in other groups and running pages, not just connected with Doctor Who, but other things. And yeah, it's a big old internet, and there's plenty of room for everybody. But yeah, come and get in touch. Like our Facebook page, Type 40, a Doctor Who fandom page. You can find us there. Same with Instagram. We share lots of images. Certainly most days there's something that we send out, even if it's just a moment of Doctor Who goodness or silliness, Simon, just to put a spring in the step. That's what I find. And there's the Type 40 Facebook group. You can come and catch up with us daily there. If either Simon or myself or one of the others, Sarah, for example, or Adam O'Brien, Kyle Wagner, Gary Finney's, anybody you may have heard or seen on the podcast over the months now, we're all in there saying bits and bobs daily. So yeah, come and interact with us there. Go large, as they say. And yeah, that about covers it. There'll be more videos coming soon, so keep an eye out for all that. And thank you for your time.